Over the river and through the woods, to grandmother's house we go.
You probably know the line. Over the river and through the wood, to grandmother's house we go. It's such a cozy, familiar image, right?
Yeah.
Especially around the holidays.
Oh, definitely. It evokes that whole Currier and Ives, nostalgic feeling.
Exactly. But what if I told you the woman who penned that beloved verse was far from just a children's poet?
She was actually a true 19th century literary firebrand. I mean, a really radical voice who intentionally made people uncomfortable.
Yeah. How so?
Well, imagine someone tackling explosive topics like interracial marriage way back in 1824.
Wow. 1824.
Yeah, or publishing one of the very first full-length anti-slavery books by a white woman in the U.S. That was Lydia Maria Child.
Okay, so definitely more than just grandmother's house.
Much more.
And that's precisely why our deep dive today will explore her, extraordinary journey. From this bold young writer to a pivotal figure in American literature.
And we have to touch on her controversial and, frankly, complicated legacy, too.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. She was born in Massachusetts, 1802. What were those early influences? Especially coming from what I read was a pretty strict puritanical background. How did that spark such a radical spirit?
It's fascinating, isn't it, how early she began pushing boundaries. Yes, she was raised under that strict moral code, puritanical discipline, you could say.
Right.
But she was also exposed to more progressive ideas. Her brother, for instance, was a Unitarian minister, and they championed, individual reason over strict dogma.
Ah, okay. So a bit of a countercurrent there.
Exactly. And then at just 22, her novel Hobomok comes out. It featured a white woman marrying a Native American man.
In 1824. That must have been shocking.
Completely shocking. A huge transgression of social norms. It immediately announced her arrival as this fearless writer, not afraid to stir the pot.
So that early radicalism was just the start. What came next? What was that even more audacious step, and what did it cost her?
Right. So by 1833, she took an enormous risk with an appeal in favor of that class of Americans called Africans.
An appeal.
And this wasn't just like a pamphlet. It was the first comprehensive, full-length argument by a white woman for immediate abolition.
Immediate abolition.
And full racial equality in the U.S.
Wow. The backlash must have been intense.
Oh, it was brutal. She lost readers, her popular children's magazine folded, polite Boston society completely turned its back on her. You have to imagine the isolation.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly difficult. But she didn't back down.
No. What's incredible is she didn't flinch. She kept writing, kept advocating.
And her influence, it stretched beyond just her own writing, didn't it? She wasn't technically a transcendentalist.
Yeah.
That whole movement with Emerson, Thoreau, focusing on intuition.
Right, not formally part of the group.
But she was close to that circle.
Yeah.
And she did something really important with another writer's work.
Yes, exactly. She knew them, interacted with them, and crucially, she edited Harriet Jacobs' incidents in the life of a slave girl.
Which is just monumental,
Yeah.
bringing one of the most powerful narratives in Black American literature to a wider audience.
Absolutely essential work. And she did something clever with her own writing style, too. She kind of subverted that sentimental style, which was so popular then.
How so? The very emotional, sometimes flowery style.
Yeah, that style. She took its emotional appeal, but transformed it into this politically charged weapon, using emotion for moral clarity to push for abolition.
So her stories weren't just meant to entertain. They were written to provoke, to demand a moral reckoning.
Precisely. They were tools for change.
Okay, now let's get into something that's become a really complex and often debated aspect of her legacy.
Right.
In 1842, she published The Quadroons. And this story is now widely seen as the origin of what literary critics call the tragic mulatta trope.
Yes, the tragic mulatta. It's a recurring figure in American literature, typically a mixed-race woman, often light-skinned, sometimes passing for white.
And her identity essentially dooms her.
Pretty much. In Child's version, and many that followed, the character is often idealized, maybe beautiful, but ultimately passive, voiceless.
Acted upon, not acting.
Exactly. As one critic, Hedy Hanran, put it, she is acted upon rather than acting, often destroyed by unattainable love or social rejection tied to her race.
So Child's intention, presumably, was to expose the horrors and injustices of slavery through this sympathetic figure.
Right, to generate empathy.
But the trope itself ended up being problematic. It kind of spread and reduced mixed-race women to these symbols of suffering, maybe denying them agency?
That's the criticism, yes. It raises really important questions about representation and who gets to tell whose story. And the irony, of course.
Yeah.
The irony is that real-life, mixed-race leaders during that era, and later people like Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Mary Church Terrell, Thurgood Marshall, were incredibly powerful figures with immense agency.
Right, they completely challenged that narrative of being passively caught between two worlds. They were agents of change themselves.
Fundamentally, they weren't tragic victims waiting for rescue or doom.
So putting it all together, what does this mean for her place in American literature? Her fiction was sentimental, romantic even, but always deeply didactic, always political.
Absolutely, intentionally political. She was a true pioneer in that sense, using literature not just for art's sake, but to educate, to provoke, to reform society.
She really helped shape what it meant to be an American writer, maybe even an American dissenter.
I think so. She made a career out of telling uncomfortable truths. And she really did blaze a trail for other women writers. One of the first women in the U.S. to truly make a living with her pen, despite the controversies.
So for you, the listener, thinking about her legacy today, what should we take away?
Well, Child provides this powerful model, doesn't she, for how literature can call out injustice, how art can be activism.
But also a reminder that even the best intentions, like maybe her intent with the quadroons, can carry unexamined bias.
Exactly. That's a crucial point. We have to look critically even at figures we admire. She was complex, a radical who wrote in rhyming couplets.
A sentimentalist who fought like a realist.
Yeah. A 19th century woman whose voice, in many ways, was speaking directly to the future, to issues we still grapple with.
Her work really drives home that literature isn't just about art, is it? It's about action.
It's about challenging the status quo, pushing for change.
Which leaves us with a powerful question, maybe. What uncomfortable truths are we willing to bring to light today, using whatever tools we have?